Hi, welcome back to the channel. If you've been following my videos for a while, you'll know that I always try to put a smile on everybody's face. Maybe the content that I'm delivering isn't always the most uplifting, but I always try to leave you with something that makes you feel warm-hearted, maybe puts a little smirk on your face. And in the early days when I was making my videos, I looked for press articles, stories that I thought were amusing, that would give you that little bit of fat satisfaction and leave you thinking, yeah, that was quite good fun. And I thought it was worth revisiting some of those stories. So in today's video, I'll share with you some of them. And please accept my apologies in advance for the quality of the audio and the video here. These were in the early days when I was making videos, so I didn't have a proper camera, I didn't have the proper lighting, I didn't even have a microphone in some of these videos. But I think the stories are quite amusing and hopefully you'll enjoy it and it will put a smile on your face.
Finally today, I wanted to talk about rodents. Now, most people don't like rodents, and mice and rats are very unpopular, particularly if you have them in your house. But in the rodent world, there is a new public enemy number one, the hamster. Now, you may be thinking that hamsters are cute and friendly and really nice, but that's not true. That is not the case. In fact, there is an army of people in hazmat suits in Hong Kong who've been sent out to track down these dangerous predators. Now, this story actually relates to the Little Boss Pet Shop. And the Little Boss Pet Shop sells hamsters, chinchillas and rabbits. And it's been a happy, friendly place for kids and families to visit for the last few years. But recently, Little Boss Pet Shop has become the most famous pet shop in the whole world. And the reason for that is that 11 hamsters in the shop have tested positive for COVID. Now, that might sound quite concerning to you. But my biggest concern here is who's testing hamsters for COVID? We've got enough problems testing people for COVID. It's quite expensive putting these tests together. It takes quite a long time. You have to do some quite invasive things with the rod before you can finish your test. So whose idea was it to start testing hamsters? But whoever's idea it was, it's paid off because they've managed to find 11 hamsters who've now got COVID. And because they've got a zero tolerance policy for COVID in China, they have now decided to track down all of the hamsters. So the hazmat-suited guys stormed the Little Boss Pet Shop and removed all of the hamsters. And they also removed all of the chinchillas and the rabbits. However, none of the chinchillas or the rabbits tested positive. And the authorities have now issued a statement advising any hamster owners not to kiss their pets and to hand over the hamsters as soon as possible. And they've been specifically told not to release their hamsters in the streets. So this throws up the question as to what is going to happen to all of these hamsters. Will all of the families simply hand over these hamsters without kissing them goodbye? Or will there be an underground movement? Will people secretly be storing hamsters? Will there be special hidden rooms in people's houses where they have their hamster runs? And people can come round and have a look at the hamsters and play with the hamsters and obviously not kiss the hamsters because that would be crazy. And the crazy thing about all of this is that there is absolutely no evidence of COVID being transmitted from animals to humans. In fact, it's most likely that the COVID got transmitted from people to the hamsters. So it's a bit of a shame for the hamsters that they've tested positive. I still don't know who is testing hamsters for COVID. What other animals they're also testing, I don't know. Obviously, they've tested chinchillas and rabbits now. But they must have a lot of staff in Hong Kong if they're now instructing people to go around testing all of these animals for COVID on a regular basis. Anyway, I thought I'd mention it today. If you've got a hamster, then make sure you're keeping it safe. If you really want to be safe, then maybe you should test your hamster, although I'm not sure how you will get the cotton bud up the hamster's nose. That's going to be quite tricky unless you've got a very, very small cotton bud. But I'll obviously keep you posted on any further breaking news about hamsters testing positive for COVID, or chinchillas, or rabbits, or any other form of pets. And finally today, I wanted to talk about wages. Inflation is at an all-time high in a lot of markets, and wage increases are generally not moving at a fast enough rate to compete with the cost of living. So overall, we're all starting to be worse off on a monthly basis. We've all got a bit less cash in our pockets than we would like. And I wanted you to spare a thought for the poor guys on Wall Street. The Citibank CFO has come out recently and said there's been a lot of pressure on wages and they're aware that they need to keep looking after their staff. And so they've just increased the base salary for all of their junior bankers to $110,000. And second-year bankers have had their pay increased to $125,000. But don't worry, before I finish on this topic, that isn't the end of the remuneration for those guys. They are entitled to a bonus on top of that. So thankfully, these guys should be okay. I think that will see them through the problems with rising inflation, certainly for this year. But the good news doesn't stop there, because JP Morgan have just announced that they've increased the total amount of their bonus pool by 40%. And even better than that, Goldman Sachs have announced that they've increased their bonus pool by 50%, and that they're going to make a special one-off payment to all 400 of their executives over and above their salary and their bonus. So some really good news from Wall Street to finish off with. All the bankers are getting paid even more than they were last year, so we don't have to worry about where they're going to find the money this year for their brand new Lamborghinis.
And finally today, I wanted to tell you the story of a 19-year-old college dropout who's just been announced as one of the latest fintech billionaires. Guillaume Poussaz is a Swiss national who initially studied university in Sweden, but his father became ill with cancer and he decided to drop out of college. Life was too short and he moved to California to learn how to surf. Now, Guillaume didn't have a lot of money and eventually he had to take a job, and he ended up working for a company by chance called Payment International Consultants, and these guys were involved in international payments. So as with a lot of people, he ended up staying in that industry and learning more about it, and in 2012 he decided to start a new venture himself called Checkout.com, which was an online payments business focused on retail businesses. Now, the startup has been quite successful and has landed some big name customers, including Netflix, Coinbase and Pizza Hut. And as with most of these startups, it's loss-making and needs to continually raise money to keep feeding its own growth. And the business has just completed its latest fundraise, which values the company at $40 billion. They raised $1 billion from a variety of US investors, and that values Guillaume's shareholding in the business at over $20 billion. So I wanted to mention this as I like Guillaume's story. His father was taken seriously ill and he decided to go and live his dream. However, the reality of life kicked in, and out of money, he found himself working for a payments processing business. But as with a lot of successful entrepreneurs and individuals, that wasn't good enough for him. He didn't want to just do a 9-to-5 existence. He was ambitious and entrepreneurial, so he learnt the systems, he learnt the business, and then decided he could do it better. So he started his own business in 2012, and less than 10 years later, he is a multi-billionaire. So I think this is great inspiration for anybody. It's never too late, and you can do things, you can start things that can go on to be worth a lot of money and can lead you to a happy and successful life. So it's a story that I liked and I wanted to share it. I think it's quite heartwarming. Somebody who was initially classified as a dropout is now being seen as a fintech legend.